Hello, students. Let's just take a moment and think about that feeling after a long, hot summer when the air gets heavy and everyone starts looking at the sky. Just waiting for that first smell of rain on dry earth. We all know that feeling, don't we? It's something we share across the entire country.
So in today's lesson, we're going to explore why that feeling is so universal. First, we'll see how the monsoon acts as a great unifier. Then, we'll understand why it's called the lifeblood of our nation. After that, we're going to learn a very practical skill, how to read climate data. We'll use that skill to compare different climates. And finally, we'll see how it all comes together to make India one single climatic unit.
This brings us to a really important question. Why does everyone, from a farmer in Punjab to a person living in Kerala, look forward to the monsoon so eagerly? Well, the answer is that the monsoon is so much more than just rain. It's actually a powerful bond that unifies our entire country.
All right, let's dive into our first section. Here we'll look at the monsoon as a great unifier. You can think of it like the rhythmic heartbeat of our country's climate, a cycle that shapes our entire year.
So, let's start with the basics. The word monsoon, where does it come from? It actually comes from an Arabic word, mawsam, which simply means season. But for us, it's a very specific kind of season. The key thing you need to remember is that a monsoon is defined by a complete reversal, a total flip in the direction of the winds during the year.
Okay, so we have the seasonal reversal of winds, but why is it so important? Well, that brings us to our next section, where we'll see how this phenomenon becomes the absolute lifeblood of our nation, shaping our land, our life, and our culture.
Now, take a close look at this map with me. It shows the journey of the southwest monsoon. You can see it first hits the Kerala coast around the 1st of June. Then, slowly but surely, it moves northwards, covering the whole country by the middle of July. This journey provides the precious water that our farmers need to start planting their of crops, things like rice and cotton. Their entire year, their livelihood, depends on the monsoon arriving on time.
And this creates a kind of shared rhythm for the whole country, doesn't it? Our entire farming calendar is set by the monsoon. And just think about our festivals, Baisakhi, Pongal, Onam. What are they all celebrating? They're celebrating the harvest, which is only possible because of these rains. Our songs, our food, our traditions, they're all deeply connected to this cycle. Even our rivers, filled with monsoon water, flow across states and unite different regions.
It's also fascinating to see how our daily lives, even our homes, are shaped by the climate. For example, if you go to places that get heavy rainfall, like Goa or the Terai region, you'll see houses with sloping roofs. Why? So the water can just run right off. But now, picture a dry and hot region like Rajasthan. The houses there have very thick walls to keep the inside cool, and they often have flat roofs. It just shows how we've learned to adapt to our local climate.
So, we've talked about the big picture and the impact of the monsoon. Now let's switch gears and get a bit more scientific. In this next section, we're going to learn a skill that's super useful, especially for your exams: how to read and understand climate data.
So, how do we actually compare the climates of different places? You can't just say one city is hot and another is rainy, right? We need to be more precise. For that, we need data. And the two most important pieces of data we look at are temperature and rainfall. And this is what that data looks like in a simple table. This shows us the average temperature and rainfall for each month in Delhi. A table like this, or a graph made from it, is called a climograph. Think of it as a quick climate snapshot for a city for the whole year.
All right, so how do we read this? It's quite simple. When this data is shown on a graph, bars usually represent the monthly rainfall, and a line graph shows the temperature. Now look closely at the data for Delhi. What jumps out at you? You can see the hot summers with temperatures around 30 degrees. But now, look at the rainfall in July. Wow, 19.3 centimeters. You can clearly see that most of the rain is concentrated in just a few months: July, August, and September. That's the monsoon pattern right there.
Okay, so now that we know how to read this data, let's put it to good use. We're going to compare two very different types of climates that we find in India. This will really help us appreciate our country's amazing climatic diversity.
In India, we have two main types. The first is called an extreme climate. As the name suggests, the temperatures are extreme: very hot summers and very cold winters. You find this in places far from the sea, deep inside the country, like Delhi or Jodhpur. The second type is an equitable climate, which you find in coastal areas like Mumbai. Here, the temperature is more or less stable and moderate all year. And the most important factor causing this difference is the distance from the sea.
Let's look at Jodhpur as an example of an extreme climate. Look at the numbers.
In May, the temperature is almost 34 degrees, but in December, it drops all the way down to about 15 degrees. That's a very large difference. And look at the annual rainfall, only 36.6 centimeters for the whole year. This is a classic example of an extreme dry climate. Now, let's compare that with Mumbai. Here, the temperature in May is 30 degrees, and in December, it's 25 degrees. The difference is only 5 degrees. It's so stable. That's an equitable climate. And because it's on the coast, it gets much more rainfall, over 183 centimeters annually. The difference is huge, isn't it?
Here's another very important pattern for you to remember. In the northern plains, as the monsoon winds travel from the east to the west, they lose their moisture along the way. Therefore, rainfall generally decreases as you move from east to west. That's why a city like Kolkata in the east gets much more rain than Delhi, which is further to the west.
So, we've seen so much diversity. Extreme climates, equitable climates, areas with heavy rain, and areas with very little. But for our final section, let's come back to our main theme. Because despite all these differences, the monsoon is what ultimately unites us. This sentence sums it up perfectly. The unifying influence of the monsoon on the Indian subcontinent is quite perceptible. That word perceptible just means it's something you can clearly see and feel all around you in our country. So to quickly recap, the monsoon binds us together. It gives the entire country a shared rhythmic cycle of seasons. It's helped by the Himalayas, which protect us from cold Central Asian winds. And finally, its waters fill our rivers, connecting our vast land into a single life-giving system. And there you have it. The monsoon truly is India's unifying bond. Now, to really master this topic for your exams, I encourage you to practice. Find the data for different cities, look at the maps, and try to interpret these patterns for yourself. It is the best way to make these concepts your own. Thank you for listening.